Hey, welcome to the CMO Whisper Show. I'm your host, Steve Olensky. Part marketing practitioner, part ad agency veteran, part journalist. I was a writer for Forbes for 10 years. I've had so many insightful conversations over the years with business leaders, to athletes, to celebrities, to, of course, CMOs. The only difference now is instead of sharing those insights through written form, I'm doing it this way. My guest today is Ryan Nelsen, Chief Marketing Officer at StackAdapt. Now, if you're not familiar with StackAdapt, think of it as the engine behind a lot of the digital advertising you actually notice. Not the spray and pray banner ads that follow you around like a bad decision, but the smarter, more intentional kind. The kind that uses data, AI, and programmatic technology to put the right message in front of the right person at the right moment without feeling like it's shouting at you. And that's where Ryan comes in. As CMO, he's leading everything from global marketing to brand to communications, helping shape how a company like StackAdapt shows up in a space that's crowded, noisy, and constantly evolving. Because when you're operating in ad tech, you're not just competing for attention, you're competing for relevance. Ryan Nelsen, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, my friend. We got a lot to cover, and let's just rock and roll. What do you think?
Let's do it. Excited to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do the 30,000 foot, which I hate that term, but I want to see it anyway. When you zoom out, let's just look at marketing. I was going to ask you what feels different about marketing today versus a few years ago, but I can ask you what feels marketing 5 minutes ago. It's changing, but you pick a time frame. What feels different than, say, a year, 3, 5 years ago about marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there's all the playbooks are being shooken up, and obviously AI is here. It's as if the internet has been created like 20 years ago, 25, 30 years ago. It's an exciting time to be alive with all the technology and tools we have available to us. And I think it's up to those marketers that are going to get after it, get gritty, get scrappy and understand and just be deep learners. And for older guys like me, having to relearn things and getting after it, it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, there's so much that's changing, and I could have asked you what's changing 30 seconds ago to 3 months ago to 3 years ago. It's just so fast. But my next question has to do with, from where you're sitting in your role, is there 1, 2, or 3 things you're seeing that a lot of marketers are just not fully appreciating or taking advantage of what they have today?
I think a lot of marketers right now are looking out in front of them, looking at short-term goals, long-term goals, and a lot of them are prioritizing performance right now of trying to just hit those targets, hit those revenue targets, and not building the long-term infrastructure and systems to connect data, to connect systems, and really move beyond projects to more process. And I think the more we can build process in place to start automating not just the process, but the distribution of our marketing campaigns with AI, I think that the ones that do that are going to be set up to win long-term. And it's that short-term, long-term thinking, making sure you get the balance right.
I could not agree more. Okay, here's the topic. Oh my gosh, we could spend the rest of the time talking about the age-old brand versus performance topic. It's literally, it feels like it's been around forever. But Why do I get the sense that divide now is starting to collapse? Do you agree? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think back to even just the thoughts on short-term, long-term, I see it as marketers think about short-term metrics around performance, hitting from a B2B standpoint, MQLs to SQLs to opportunities to close one business. What's that funnel look like? For more B2C brands, what are you doing in terms of driving product revenue? We did a study a little while ago with ad perceptions and found that about 70% of marketers are prioritizing performance over brand. And then we actually did a follow-on study with Kantar to kind of diversify it. And we found that actually brands that focus more on a 50-50 split of brand and performance actually have an increase of sales of about 10%. And so I thought it was a fascinating sort of license to go take as marketers. Let's go a little harder on the brand side. We know that's going to be the long-term benefit anyway of building the brand, but that ultimately pays up. And at the end of the day, if you're a CMO, if you're not focusing on performance, right away, you're probably going to get fired by the time you build that brand. But if you're not focusing about the brand, your top of funnel is going to dry up, and it's going to be a lot more difficult. It's going to be an uphill slug to go do that. So definitely finding a good balance is awesome.
Go a little step further. What does that look like, not just at your own company, but any company, when you really hit that sweet spot? the balance of brand and performance. What's that look like in practical application?
Yeah, I think I'll think about it from a B2B standpoint for a moment here. There's obviously, a lot of marketers historically have been, the old school way of things maybe doing is you're measured on leads. Like what's the top of funnel look like? Are you driving enough demand? And you can always look at the ratios of quality and quantity and what does that look like? And at the end of the day, nothing matters but revenue. And so how do you back into that revenue funnel? Maybe there's a smaller top of funnel, but you have a higher conversion rate through the funnel. And so thinking about that from our mix, we obviously use StackAdapt ourselves to be going out there and across every single channel, connected TV, digital out of home, podcasts, video, display, et cetera, making sure that we're showing up in front of the right audiences with the right message at the right time, but also leveraging LinkedIn to the B2B platform, obviously all of our Google work, Meta work, but then, content syndication, having strong thought leadership out there, our own content as well, partnering our partner ecosystem. I'm sharing a lot of just different tactics as well, but that whole kind of, puzzle comes together into kind of a picture that brings together enough volume, enough quality, and ultimately enough demand that's going to go drive that. And now once you have that muscle and that machine and your data and your systems and your campaigns are all flowing sort of on a kind of a highly well-oiled demand gen machine, you can then start overlaying some bigger bets on brand showing up. We did a Times Square takeover on New Year's Eve. And so when the ball dropped, you saw StackAdapt next to the ball on the buildings there. And our CEO got 15 text messages right away saying, "Hey, I didn't know you guys were that big. I didn't know you were advertising there." And so some of it's the softer skills side of things where it's just an anecdote that you get a text from your CEO and the founders "Hey, good job on this." Cause we're showing up in cool places. And so balancing the art and science, the heart and mind of all that, ultimately, I think is the end of the day is the sweet spot of where brands really grow.
That would have been a good KPI to have, by the way. How many texts does your CEO get?
Yeah. I think I've always joked about do marketers just start targeting, showing ads to just different, audiences that would have more pull or say on budgets or other things because, it's working, but we do it the right way. We definitely are spending our budgets focusing on our audiences, but there's other ways for sure.
For CMOs listening out there now, and whether they're new or they've been in the role, whatever, and there's that imbalance, where do you suggest they start to even that out?
I'd say it depends on, I guess, your tenure in the company. You got to obviously get some quick wins, and it starts with surrounding yourself with the best people and people that are scrappy, leaning in really hard on new technology. And I'll tell you, one time I joined a company that had an established CMO who was exiting, and I joined. And what was happening in the company is they were doing these infographics that would take 3 or 4 months, really beautiful infographics, incredible data, really valuable for the industry. And then they launched it and 50 people looked at it. And so I just flipped that completely. And I was like, all right, we don't go get distribution. And so I built a diagnostic that was this future of, at the time, future of banking diagnostic. And it helped the audience stack themselves up against their competitors. And we had in a week 7,000 people take that. And it was more leads than they had the previous 2 years combined, just because it was, something compelling that was low friction for somebody to engage with. And that was a kind of just a quick win that I did in the first month of joining that, built some trust and built some confidence that we could go really crank this up. And then from there could make some bigger bets and long-term shots.
So once the CMO tries to bring brand and performance together, right, it kind of becomes a leadership question. Specifically, how should the CMO and CRO be working together?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always tried to make the CRO, one, just best friends, but two, the most successful person in the business, because revenue solves pretty much every problem. And so if the CRO and revenue team and leaders are crushing revenue targets, everything else flows. So I tend to, we disagree and commit and debate, but we lock arms and we just get after it together. I think I'll always try to be at a company that I'm really, really close with the CRO and just a lot of mutual trust between. But it comes down to just us talking their language. I don't talk in marketing speak, or I try to speak with the CFO, the CEO, CRO the same way, that we're business drivers. We grow businesses together. And that means that our marketing goals line up to our revenue goals, line up to our company goals, and all that's threaded all the way throughout. And when we start to kind of pat ourselves on the back of a campaign that maybe drove some leads, I definitely celebrate some of those wins, but we definitely follow up to see what the impact of that was. And if it didn't work, we reassess and we work on that. So at the end of the day, sometimes marketing rolls up to a CRO. Sometimes there's different structure layers, but I've always found that having a CMO report to the CEO and have that solid pillar in the business to not just be a marketer, but a business grower, I think is critical for businesses.
So you mentioned language, speaking the same language. Is that the single biggest disconnect, or are there other reasons, other ways that CMOs and CROs can coexist?
Yeah, it's building trust. It's not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. We got to back it up with our efforts and with the outcomes and the results that we drive. We got to also be honest and really radically candid on what's working and what's not. So yeah, I think about the way that I manage the marketing team and try to be a leader is, we set really big, aggressive goals. We figure out, is there a path, and what path is going to be the best path to get there? Mm-hmm. We get ruthlessly and prioritize really ruthlessly around that. I kind of talk about 4 Ps instead of like the traditional business school 4 Ps. I talk about what's our purpose? What are we, passionate about? And like what really fires us up? What are our priorities? And then what's our pace? And those 4 driving the 4 Ps that I think really drive a team. But starting with your purpose, what's your why? What are you here to do?
Yeah,
is where we all begin.
Okay, so I'm going to connect some dots that should be connected, and that's connecting data to revenue, right? And everybody talks about data-driven. We get it. Everybody listening, we know you're data-driven. Mm-hmm. We get it. But very few can connect those dots cleanly to revenue, right? Where do you think that usually falls apart, the disconnect from data to revenue?
I think every business is on a different journey. I think, where I've always been at data companies. So I've always been a marketer marketing to marketers, or a marketer marketing data technology. And so I've always valued this conversion of data to insights. And what is that? Data is only as good as, the data in. The outputs are only as good as the data in, and sort of garbage in, garbage out kind of concept. As you think about that, we have dashboards. We also have now in Slack, everything embedded in. We're pulling in Salesforce data, Gong data, that I can just ask, tell me the top 10 customers in Raleigh, North Carolina. And it tells me in 30 seconds what those are. Okay, what's their spend? What channels are they using us for? And now some of the AI functionality and technology we have, we're able to just be able to get these answers in real time. And so that changes the role of a data analyst to be more prescriptive on what are some of the signals that you're seeing that maybe on a weekly, monthly basis we can make fine adjustments to. And so our marketing operations team, just to kind of get more tactical on this, our marketing operations team works very closely with our revenue operations team. We think about what is the overall revenue goal for the year. We then back into, okay, what's our average deal size? What's our average opportunity size, average SQL value? We look in sort of the math of what that looks like, and, make sure that the connected systems between, a hand raiser and somebody picking up the ball, progressing that, driving more efficiency in that sales function, and then ultimately taking it to a close, that we're just always just ruthlessly optimizing that. How do we just win business faster, expand existing customers faster? What I love about StackAdapt, it's also just like we're very customer first. It's like we're going to do what's right for the customer. We're not going to sell something they don't need. I love being a part of companies that are that way.
Really, really high level question here, but just, are marketers drowning in data, or are we still just not using it the way we should?
I say it's an interesting time right now where, so there's a moment in time where AI, when we started to kind of kick things off, that there was not enough data to feed the models. And for the first time in history, there was not enough data. And I think now we're kind of finding a better balance with that. I think it all depends on I'm not super technical. And so I always have to surround myself with, jokingly sort of nerdier folks that we joke about, the data nerds, because I love those groups that can connect systems and connect data for me to be able to find the signal from the noise and go into a meeting and make decisions and have meetings be really productive that way versus just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
And so I think many marketers, and certainly it's a good question because I think many marketers are drowning in data. I think the bigger challenge right now is connecting systems and connecting data. We have OpenAI, we have Claude. We're doing a lot in Claude. OpenAI turns off their export, so we can't now export info into Claude. And we have 7 or 8 other tools popping up all the time that are, point solutions for AI. As a CMO, connecting all those different systems and saying, okay, what is going to really truly move the needle? How do we then also go create guardrails and brand guidelines for all the other AI users in the company to be able to pull from the same repository of brand guidelines, style guides, messaging, positioning.
Right.
That's the stuff that I think that we can really do as marketers right now, is lay that foundation, because if we don't, it's going to get out of hand, and content's going to get worse. It's going to get further and further from the core of what we're trying to say.
Yeah. And then it's also, does it sure not run the risk of, now with AI in the mix, becoming less, sorry to be so obvious, but less human?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think my viewpoint on this is that we should certainly be automating all of our process and our distribution, but we shouldn't be automating our point of view as marketers. And that is unique to us. So anytime we can automate campaigns, systems, technology, StackAdapt is definitely moving towards an area where we're automating channels and helping marketers and advertisers do that as well, from an end-to-end orchestration standpoint for both advertising and marketing. And we see that that's just where the future is going. So yeah, process distribution is critical.
Okay, look, it's obviously the worst kept secret. AI is everywhere right now, but I want you to look at it just from a very, very high level. When it comes to AI, what's real versus just noise?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think most marketers right now, some are on the leading edge, some are just getting started, some are getting really curious. I think a lot of marketers are so busy, they don't have the time to dive in really, really deep on things. And so I'm blocking hours and Friday evenings and to try to just get up to speed and learn faster. But I think Claude and OpenAI and some of the ChatGPT work, and then Claude with Cowork, and is incredibly, incredibly valuable for marketers right now. If you're not diving in on Claude, I think there's huge, huge potential for improving workflows and just getting things done. And so I think that's very real. I think both are going to be enormous companies. And in fact, also for all the marketers, that are in certain different industries, I think all of us are feeling the pressure of what does Claude and OpenAI, what are they going to go disrupt? Because, sometimes you could say that AI will eat the world. As Claude Design comes out last week and competing now with Figma and Adobe. OpenAI is now competing with some of those things as well, and launching some things as well recently. So businesses that have built a moat and have built unique differentiation, I think are going to be good, but you never know a new use case that's going to come out that's going to be paradigm shifting for the industry and for our roles.
Is AI making marketing better, faster, lazier, more productive, to be determined, all of the above? How do you answer that? AI is making marketing better, yes or no, and then go from there?
Definitely making it better. I think early on, maybe as ChatGPT was launched, I think you could see that some of the most early adopters, you could argue that they were very smart, but a lot of them were just looking for easier ways to get things done. Yeah, I wouldn't say they were lazy, but you've heard quotes before where sometimes if you hire somebody that's kind of lazy to do something, they're going to find the easiest way to get it done. And I think there's a lot of that, in that sense that how do you go become a really not lazy marketer, a really fast-paced, high-performing marketer, but also think differently than what you've always done, and take the time to stop and say, okay, if I go take these 2 hours and build out this deck and this presentation and this speech for next week, or I can do it in 3 minutes with AI and then go tweak it. I think most marketers are doing that level, kind of basic level of AI use. But then now take it a step further of how do you then go integrate your systems? How do you go pull all of your data together? How do you go create workflows now? Outputs, sites, landing pages, video, design, all of that is getting so much better on a weekly basis. So definitely getting better, but I want to keep the human element in it as well. And I've said that, I think others have said this, AI is not going to take marketers' jobs, but marketers using AI will. And it's on us to make sure we're on the front foot.
Yeah, and it's a perfect segue what I wanted to get into about the human connection, right? And everything is becoming more and more automated. And I know you wrote big believe in-person experiences, right, are becoming more and more important. Why is that?
Yeah. There always will be a need for human connection and relationship building. When you meet somebody in person or face-to-face, and you build a connection, you have a genuine connection, that goes well beyond business. I think people, work can be about friendships. People work with people. They want to work with people they enjoy working with. And so we tend to lean in quite hard on creating experiences. And I use maybe the analogy of the best brands make more deposits than they make withdrawals in your life. And so they're constantly, consistently making deposits. What was that, that valuable report or that experience or that blog that was shared or that commercial that you saw that inspired you and maybe looked around, rethought your life. Those things all make a difference. The moment that you have more withdrawals and are asking more than you're taking and taking more than you're giving, I think is where brands get sideways. And so that in-person experience is just another way to go do a really big deposit into the relationship you have with that person. And so we tend to do large annual summits. I've done things where we've done really high-end things for folks, and you leave there basically best friends.
Yep.
You're texting, you're following up, you're asking how the family's doing. And that's really what I think is a powerful thing about business. It doesn't have to be so rigorous or robotic. It can be friendly, personable, and fun. So I think that's what I love about the in-person experience.
It's something I promise not to get on my soapbox at least too long, but it's when I coach people, and even like people in college, when I talk to them, I said a relationship is a relationship is a relationship. It doesn't matter if it's personal, professional. There's still some fundamental things that apply. And that's honesty, transparency, communication. It's no different than your relationship with your parents, your children, your partner. But
absolutely,
somewhere along the line, some people and Ryan is my client, so I can't speak to him about how his kid's soccer game went. Where is that written?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's fascinating, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. All of us love working with people that we trust and, get to know. And I think I've always tried to work with teams and have teams that trust each other, but also really care about each other in terms of our families. And at the end of the day, I take a lot of pride in being a part of a company that's growing really, really fast, because that impacts. We've hired about 1,000 people in the last year and a half since I've joined, and that's 1,000 families that we're making hopefully their life better, their quality of life, but also, just giving them an opportunity to build a really strong career. So it means something, and then that expands to our partners and clients and everybody else.
And the word we're kind of not dancing around, but I'm going to say it, is community.
Yeah.
Right. And
absolutely.
Do you think marketers are underestimating the role and really the power of community?
I think there is. I joined a chat this morning with some of the top marketing leaders here in my area. It's normally a busy schedule, but I blocked it this morning because we're talking about what's working in AI, what's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fully remote company, so I work at home, and so I'm just normally cranking, all day long. And so it's good to sometimes to hop out, meet some folks, get perspective, understand what they're doing. And so that was a nice community moment I think I had today that I valued a lot.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna put on your forecasting hat, and we're going to check back this in a couple of years. What's a belief about marketing today that you think won't hold up a couple of years from now?
It's a good question. I think there is a general notion right now for marketers that marketers can do it better than AI. And I think what we've learned over the last even just couple of months is that even imagery and videos and design was pretty bad, and even in the last several weeks, new models coming out where it's going to be very, very difficult to compete and say that anymore, because you have the smartest machine in the world, and we're going to say that we're going to be smarter than that. I think that's like very, very unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we go use this technology for good in a way that changes the way people work? And we're more efficient, certainly, but how can we be more effective? And I'll use design as an example. There's an art to design that is basically, designers that they take a lot of pride in unique artwork and creativity. And so we'll always continue to have our unique point of view, our unique skill set in design, and make it our own. Because if we just pump something into Claude or OpenAI or ChatGPT, there's going to be, we'll get similar outputs as others. So we need to definitely have that. But I think the days are kind of over where we can have people say, we can do that better. I have heard though that a lot of brands, we were included, we don't use a lot of human AI imagery. We want to use real humans in our ads, and because you can still tell a little bit, but it's getting pretty good, but you can still tell. But for process or systems and some of those things, even sort of automation of reaching out to clients and saying, hey, this is my AI assistant. They're going to schedule this meeting for you. They call, it's a fully interactive chat, feels like you're talking to a person, but it's not. The client knows they're not, and they're okay with that. I think that's all going to evolve very, very quickly over the next couple of years, where we get to a point where sellers are probably just closing deals and building relationships, and it's the human to human, but they're not setting meetings, they're not prospecting, they're not, because all that will be automated from email to workflows to calendars, et cetera. So that's one example.
Yeah, no, listen, I completely agree. And this is going to sound oxymoronish, but I think that's the point. To me, the brands, even as AI takes over more and more, the more human brands are, they're going to be the more successful ones. And I'm not saying that the right way, but you know what I mean.
100%. Yeah. There's power in the human experience and relationships. And and I think the roles will change. I think we'll become more air traffic controllers and orchestra, conductors of the orchestra versus maybe playing the violin on some of these things. And that's just the way I think it will be. Those that are learning it now and digging in deep, I think are going to be the ones that are set up for success.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. If you've heard my show, I ended all the random 5. If you've heard any episodes, yes, 5 random personal questions.
Okay.
So my listeners can get to know Ryan Nelsen outside of work. So if you're game, here we go.
Let's do it.
What's something outside of work that you're really passionate about?
Yeah. I have 4 daughters, so I'm a girl dad. So we have a lot of fun.
And he still has all his hair, by the way, if you're not watching on video. Ryan still has all his hair. I'll just
That's true. It's true. Because I have a 15-year-old and my daughter just turned 13 yesterday. So we're doing a big party tonight. So, yeah, no, I'm passionate about that. I get outside. I live in Utah, so I get outdoors, like to wakeboard, snow ski. I'm big on that, mountain biking, riding motorcycles, all that stuff. So that's my passion.
Okay. Next question. Favorite app you can't live without?
My favorite app I can't live without. That's a good question. What like my top ones
like
are.
If I grabbed your phone and you went, no, don't take that.
Yeah. Well, I'm on Slack the most.
Okay.
It's not a fun answer. Have a fitness app. I like that.
Okay.
But yeah, between like Gmail and Slack, that's probably the most used for sure on my phone. And the Photos app in terms of just kind of going back and just wanting to like pick me up, looking at memories.
I love that. Yeah. I love that answer. Any parent would say that, right? Okay. When it's all said and done, what do you want people to remember you for?
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about it in a while, but I want people to know me for being a good person, good human, somebody that made a difference in their lives and made their life better. So I think it comes down to making a difference for everybody around me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now go back in time. What did you think you were going to be doing with your life when you were 18?
Yeah, when I was 18. That was
right. Younger. It doesn't have to be specifically 18, but
when I was 12, I was going to be a baseball player 100%.
Okay.
That was the plan. 18. At 18, I realized that's not going to happen. That's why I did the hesitation in the answer. I love sports and specifically baseball. But yeah, I knew that I was going to be. My first job was working at a golf course, and I picked up everybody on the golf cart. I washed their golf clubs. I washed the golf carts. All of that, and in that, I learned how to talk to people and have relationships with people that were pretty successful. It was a country club. So I got to meet, a lot of folks that were very successful. I would ask them, like, what do you do for work? And so I started to kind of understand like how business work, entrepreneurs, a lot of them had their own businesses. And so, at 18 at that time, I was going to start a business, and then I got into marketing, hit my stride, and very, very happy with how it's gone.
Wow. I love that. I absolutely love that. You were soaking it all in. Maybe not all of it stuck, but a lot of it got through. 100%. Yeah. Okay. Last question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
In business, it was join the fastest growing company with the best product. So as a marketer, if you join a company that has an incredible product, there's a lot of runway for us to get creative and to go do some damage in a good way. I think if you're in a company that maybe the product is not innovating as fast as you want to, you're kind of pulling them along. And if you have the best product, that leads to the best revenue. It leads to sometimes the best marketing as well. And so it starts there with having substance to be able to go market.
Got it. Well, Ryan Nelsen, what a treat. Thank you so much. The time flew by. I can't thank you enough, my friend. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the CMO Whisperer Show. I hope you shared this episode with your friends. And if you have not already, please subscribe to be kept up to date on all the latest episodes. And if you're so inclined, leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you.